My Safety Training Online presents what to do with an OSHA inspection. What you will learn. Well, we'll discuss how OSHA is structured, what the inspection consists of, what the opening conference and closing conference consist of, what the responsibilities of OSHA has, what the OSHA's priorities are, and how OSHA rates the probability of accidents. Part 1. Introduction to OSHA's Organization. Well, at the top of the OSHA organization is an administrator, and just below that you'll find the divisions of enforcement, occupational lab, the appeals section, and the voluntary services section. The enforcement section has an insurer or self-insured program. The voluntary services section has a standards and technical department, along with a resources, conference, and public education section. And finally, there is a consultative services that is also part of the voluntary services. Hopefully by the end of this program you'll understand the structure of OSHA, understand the OSHA inspection process, and to introduce you to OSHA's way of doing things. In 1971, the OSHA Act was enacted to ensure that occupational safety and health would become a priority for the U.S. workforce. In the U.S., OSHA administers the OSHA Act and enforces the occupational safety and health rules by establishing minimum performance standards. The primary purpose of the Administrator's Office is to set policy and direct OSHA's nationwide occupational safety and health programs. Well, we have the Administrator. This position establishes goals, strategy, legislative concepts to help reduce occupational injuries and illnesses, as well as fatalities. Below that is the appeals section, which is an independent program within OSHA's responsible for processing appealed citations. Next, we have the Occupational Health Laboratory, which is a well-equipped lab analyzing samples collected by field compliance officers and consultants. We have the enforcement section, which does field enforcement. Safety, health, and construction compliance officers perform workplace inspections. The consultative services are professional safety and health consultants helping employers to evaluate their work environment and implement changes to enhance workplace safety and health. Lastly, we have the public education and conferences done by OSHA, which has a staff of safety and health training specialists offering training programs and etc. on a variety of safety and health topics year-round. The standards sections will write and publish OSHA's occupational safety and health rules and help the public understand its new or revised code. Code interpretations, hazard alerts, and technical advice are also provided. Lastly, we have the OSHA Resource Center, which contains a technical library, which audiovisual lending is done, as well as workplace safety and health research assistance is provided. Part 2. OSHA's responsibilities and priorities. OSHA must provide an effective program to enforce the statutes, regulations, rules, standards, or orders for the protection of life, safety, and health of employees. It will inspect places of employment and investigate industrial accidents, fatalities, and catastrophes. OSHA will issue citations for violations. It will identify safety and health hazards which may or may not be violations and bring them to the attention of employers and employees. It issues reasonable correction orders, assists employers and employees in safety and health matters, assesses and collects civil monetary penalties for violations, and grants or denies extensions of the time set by correction orders. OSHA will hold informal conferences with employers or employees to discuss citations, penalties, or correction orders, and other safety and health matters without limiting or extending the employer's appeal rights. Priority of inspections. An inspection is made possible as soon as OSHA becomes aware of a condition or practice that is an imminent danger situation. In a fatality or catastrophe or accident, an investigation may be made as soon as possible when OSHA becomes aware of a fatality, catastrophe, or accident. A complaint. An inspection would be initiated by OSHA when OSHA receives a complaint and the nature of the information indicates the complaint's probable validity. Priority of inspections. An inspection may be made if safety or health violations were observed by an OSHA employee or other federal, state, or local government representative, and the nature of the information indicates referral's probable validity. In a program inspection situation, an inspection is followed by the provisions of OSHA's bylaws and its current priorities. An inspection may be initiated when an employer requests removal of a red warning notice, when a stay of correction or variance has been denied, or an extension of time has been denied, when OSHA believes an employer is not in compliance, or to monitor a progress towards correction of a violation, or when the employer is issued citation with a correction order. Part 3. How likely will OSHA inspect my workplace? OSHA's probability ratings. Low if the factors considered indicate that they would be unlikely for an accident to occur. Medium if the factors indicate it would be likely that an accident could occur. And high if the factors indicate it would be very likely that an accident could occur. Factors that OSHA considers in determining a probability rating. Well, the number of employees exposed will be the number one factor, the frequency and duration of the exposure, the proximity of the employees to the point of danger, factors such as requiring to work under stress, lack of proper training and supervision, or an improper workplace design would also be considered. OSHA's severity rating. Other than serious. These are conditions which could cause injury or illness to employees, but would not include serious physical harm. Serious physical harm are injuries that could shorten life or significantly reduce physical or mental efficiency by inhibiting, either temporarily or permanently, the normal function of any part of the body. Death. The severity may be adjusted on the basis of any other relevant factors which would affect the severity of a possibility of injury or illness. Here we can see OSHA's probability ratings, where a low could be no fine at all, or perhaps a possibility as much as a $300 fine for an other than serious violation. And here we can see where serious violations result in a $300 to $1,250 fine. And fines up to $5,000 are also possible for serious violations which had a high probability of occurring. These fines can be revised as needed by OSHA. Part 4. What happens after an OSHA inspection? Here we can see repeat violations and penalties are possible, with a fourth repeat violation at the discretion of the administrator as far as what that amount will be. OSHA Discrimination Complaints. If an employer or prospective employee may file a complaint, or if the employee believes discrimination has occurred, when the employee opposes a practice forbidden by or engaged by a practice provided for in the Occupational Safety and Health Act. The employee refuses in good faith to be subjected to an imminent danger situation provided by the employer, who refuses to correct the hazard, or it was not possible to notify the employer of the danger. After an inspection, how to respond to a citation or notice of penalty. After receipt of the citation, the employer must promptly post a citation for employees' information for 3 days or until the violation is corrected, whichever occurs last. Number 2, they must ensure that any amendments or withdrawals to the citation are posted with the original citation for 3 days or until the violation is corrected, whichever occurs last. Payment of penalties. All civil penalties become due and owing after the citation becomes the final order. If a payment is not received within 10 days after the order becomes final, it may be docketed as a judgment as provided by OSHA. How does OSHA verify correction of the violations? Well, when an OSHA receives a citation for a violation, the employer must notify the appropriate OSHA field office of the corrective action taken to comply with each cited violation by letter of corrective action. Notification must occur within 10 calendar days after the last abatement or correction date on the citation. When a compliance officer notes that violations are complied with at the time of inspection, abatement verification for these violations is not required. OSHA and the informal conference. OSHA provides an opportunity for the employer and employees to discuss informally any matter affecting occupational safety and health in the workplace. An informal conference may be used to clarify statements of observed violations, discuss safety and health requirements, discuss abatement dates, or explain the penalty system. After an inspection, employers must inform affected employees of the results and ongoing actions by promptly posting copies of unedited inspection notices or other documents in places where it is readily observable by the affected employees. Post-inspection events continued. The citation is received by the employer and must be posted for 3 days or until the violation is corrected, whichever occurs last. Amendment or withdrawal of the citation. This must be posted along with the original citation for 3 days or until the violation is corrected, whichever occurs last. Post-inspection posting requirements include requesting an extension for a correction date. This must be posted until OSHA grants or denies the extension. A notice of extension of the correction date. This must be posted until the violation is corrected. And a settlement. That should be posted for 10 days or until the violations have been corrected, whichever occurs last. Any notice of hearing must also be posted until the hearing date. Part 5. OSHA's Assistance with Compliance. OSHA's Voluntary Compliance Program consists of the program helping employers achieve voluntary compliance to preclude issuing citations and penalties, except when an employer fails to correct a serious violation identified. The program will include the following. OSHA will provide health and safety consultative services, worker and employer training and education, research projects including causes and prevention of industrial accidents and diseases, trends demonstrating the need for licensing, certification, or new or revised rules. The Voluntary Compliance Assistance Program will also include demonstration projects utilizing new or innovative processes or procedures to assist workers and employers in preventing occupational injury or disease, whatever the cause. OSHA will also provide publications and general distribution of training and accident prevention materials. OSHA consultations are conducted at no cost and conducted on an ongoing basis. Part 6. OSHA's top most violated standards. The number one most violated written standard is the Written Hazard Communication Program standard. Number two is safety committees by small employers, safety committees by 11 plus employees, the abrasive wheel exposure standard, written certification of hazard assessments is number 5. Number 6 is guarding unprotected sides and edges. Number 7 is guarding open-sided floors, platforms. Number 8 is conductors entering boxes. Number 9 is uses of flexible electrical cords. And number 10 is regular safety committee meetings. Part 7, the opening and closing OSHA conference. At an opening conference, the OSHA compliance officer will present his or her credentials, give the name of the employer representative, will be obtained by the CO. He or she will determine if the employer is under OSHA consultation. The name of the employee representative will be obtained at that time. The OSHA rep will also explain the purpose, nature, and scope of the inspection, which may be expanded, and any trade secrets which the place of work may have will be discussed. The OSHA compliance officer will do a sampling of photos and video with an audio discussion of with the employer. Employee participation will be discussed through interviews. The reduction for violations corrected before the end of the inspection will be discussed. And we will also discuss a closing conference at the end of the inspection with both the employer and employee representatives. He or she may request records from the employer, as well as personal protective equipment, which will be needed for the inspection. The closing conference. The closing conference will consist of the right to present pertinent information regarding violations and the alleged violations or hazards themselves which have been identified by the officer during the inspection, any penalties, abatement times, hazard letters, and a citation issuance. Alright, also at the closing conference will be a letter of corrective action, the posting requirements of the employer, any appeal rights that they are entitled to within 20 days as far as the penalty, the violation, and abatement, an informal conference, as well as extensions discussions, and the follow-up or failure to abate issues will also be discussed. Included in the closing conference will also be referrals which may have occurred, variances, and employee protection against discrimination, abatement assistance, availability of consultation through OSHA's workers' comp carrier, accident and fatality notification requirements. Okay, here we can see some sample OSHA compliance officer questions when involved with a confined space issue. How often do employers enter a confined space? What is the average duration of the entry? Who is delegated to this task? Does the company have a written entry procedure? What monitoring test equipment is used and how often is it calibrated and by who? What type of equipment is used to ventilate confined spaces? Is it adequate? Is it maintained properly? Well, thanks for participating from the gentle folks of My Safety Training Online and what to expect from an OSHA inspection.